Guess why every writer struggles with writing the first chapter of their novel? That's because a blank page is scary to every writer in the world. It's easy to get confused about what you should do and what you should not do when just beginning your story. And therefore, in today's video, let's talk about those first chapter mistakes that most newbie writers make and how you can avoid them. Number 1, promising the wrong story. Every book that I've ever disliked did this mistake. Understand this. Every time a reader picks up a new book, the first chapter is supposed to be not just the beginning, but also the promise of the type of story your reader can expect from this novel. By that, I mean expectations like theme, genre, emotions, and the kind of experience you're promising the reader inside the story. A lot of times, writers want to have a strong opening hook, and so they start their story with some exciting events happening, which don't matter in the big picture scheme of the book. This is a huge mistake because when you do this, you are promising the wrong story to your reader. You're setting up the wrong expectations. And so in the long term, your reader will feel dissatisfied, disappointed, and maybe even frustrated if you don't deliver what they're expecting. By that, I don't mean that your story needs to be predictable. I only mean that your story needs to have the kind of emotions that it promised the reader. I mean, if your story is going to be about a happy romance, you cannot suddenly turn it into a tragic periodic drama. Shouldn't be doing that, right? So start with something that tells your reader, which conveys to your reader what you really want to evoke from the story. To understand better, look at this example. How would you feel if I titled this video, How to Write a Bestseller, and then when you click on it, I'm talking all about cute dogs? I may do that sometime, but don't clickbait your readers. So when writing the first chapter of your novel, always focus on setting up the right expectations for your reader. I like to call it the promise of the author. Ask yourself, what is the story really about? What are the emotions you'll be tapping into? How do you want the reader to feel by the end of this novel? Those are the 3 questions you need to be successfully conveying to the reader in your first chapter itself. At this point of the video, if you are getting any value out of it, please like the video and consider subscribing to my channel because here I talk all about writing compelling novels and creating rich, vivid experiences for your readers. Moving on, the next mistake newbie writers make while writing their first chapter is focusing on everything but characters. My biggest pet peeve as a reader is to start reading a story and not understanding who the story is really about and why I should care about them. Therefore, my advice to all writers from all genres is to closely focus on your first chapter because as a reader, if I don't care about your characters, I won't care about your story. Here is the science behind why characters are the most important aspect of any story. As humans, we love to connect with other humans. We get a sense of validation from knowing that somebody else has experienced something similar to what we have experienced. And so you'll notice that people who have been in similar situations tend to have stronger friendships. That's why when your reader is reading your story, they're supposed to be experiencing the same thing that your character is experiencing in the story. There needs to be a bond between your character and your reader, very much like real people, like real friendships. Another simple way to understand this is by the analogy of gossiping. People love to gossip because it makes them feel special. So when you are writing a story, you're actually writing a gossip, and your job as a writer is to write a juicy gossip. And what do you think makes a piece of information juicy gossip? Think about it. It's not about what happened or why it happened or how it happened. It will always be about who it happened to and how much you care about them. For example, let's imagine 2 situations in your life. In situation A, you find out that a famous celebrity is having a secret affair. Only you know about this. In situation B, your 2 best friends are having a secret affair and you are the only person who found out about this accidentally. They have no idea that you know. Now, which is going to be the juicier gossip for you? If you are a normal human being, you will definitely find the second situation, the one with your best friends having a secret affair, to be the juicier gossip. And the reason is because you feel closely for them, you know them personally, you care for them. And that's exactly why characters are the most important aspect of any story, and that's why I highly recommend focusing closely, heavily on your characters in the first chapter, because you really want the reader to feel for them, to care for them, and that's why they'll be more invested in the story. So the next time you're wondering where to start, don't worry, it's not the plot, not the world building, it's nothing but your characters. The third mistake that newbie writers make when starting their first chapter is starting with the wrong character. This is not necessarily a mistake, but it is an important consideration before you start writing. If you start your book with a character who is not your protagonist, then that is a tricky business. This is because your readers are by default inclined to get connected to the first person they meet in your story. Hence, staying close to your protagonist in the first chapter is going to be the safest bet, especially if you're a newbie. However, this rule has been broken countless times, and it is possible to do it successfully without any issues. The trick here is to have a good reason for starting with this other character instead of your protagonist. What's your intention with this other character? Why are they leading the story instead of your protagonist? There needs to be an aesthetic or logical reasoning behind why you make this choice of intentionally choosing another character to start the story. And most important part is to have this reason and convey it to the reader in the first chapter itself while they're reading it. Now, of course, you don't have to put in a big message explaining why you're doing this, but it should be implied in the way you write. It should be implied. The reader should think, oh, that's why they started with this other character, and that's why we're going into somebody else's story. It needs to make sense in your story. Otherwise, you will set up wrong expectations in your reader's mind, and you definitely don't want that. Number 4, focusing on action instead of emotion. A common mistake that I see in a lot of first chapters is a lot of action without any emotional build-up. In other words, when your characters are doing things without conveying to the reader why they are doing those things and why the reader should be caring about any of those things, that's when the story starts to become boring. And you will be surprised to know that bombs blasting and cars crashing can get easily boring if your readers don't know the emotions building or bubbling underneath the surface while all of that action is happening. Now, I'm not saying that you should not have action sequences in your first chapter. You absolutely can, and maybe you should, but only as long as your reader understands what's going on in your character's mind and feels the emotions going on in your character's heart. I understand that this is a very difficult step, and not all newbie writers know the art of balancing the action and the emotion. Therefore, if you want me to make a dedicated video about how to balance action and emotion in a certain scene, then comment the phrase, "I want that action emotion video." Mistake 5. Using cliches. I don't think I need to explain this a lot because you probably already know. Certain elements have been overused so many times over and over again in books that they have been overexhausted, and now if you use those same things in your books, they can get quite predictable for the readers. For example, opening a novel with a dream sequence, opening with your character waking up in bed, opening with the nature, opening with rain, and all of those things and so many others have been done a million times. Therefore, for newer writers, I highly suggest avoiding all of these cliches because you don't want your novel to be perceived as just any other book. Having said that, I still strongly believe that there are some specific clever ways in which you can use those cliches and write a very strong opening. As a writer or as an artist, you can do anything you want as long as you learn the right way of doing that thing. And so, if you want to learn the 7 different classic ways of opening a novel, then check out this video next where I'm going to be teaching you those methods using 7 real-life examples, really published stories out there, and teach you how to craft that strong opening hook, even the cliche ones. Alright, this is me, Srishti Rathour, signing off for this video. If you enjoyed it, please subscribe to my channel and ring that bell. I really appreciate you being here and watching my videos. Thank you so much. I'll see you next in this video right here. Bye!